We had a death threat called in on us, and it turned out it was a 80-year-old woman. What are we going to do with £36,000 in cash? I phone up HSBC in Edgware, and I'm like, I've got quite a lot of money to bring into your account, to your branch. Can I deposit it? And the woman's like, oh, I actually should call the police. And yeah, you've got to go, get out. So I knew the Kanifa guys. I knew a couple of them, and they were good people. I knew Sasha, who was the general secretary, German guy, who's absolutely worked 40 hours a week for free on Kanifa, voluntarily, and he was he knew everything about the non-recognised world. So I said to him, what do you need? What does Kanifa need? And he said, look, come along to AGM, see if you can help out. I went along to their AGM, and they brought up the president brought up a slide of their financials on the board, and I had to tap someone next to me. I was like, what? Wait a minute, this says they've got €400 in their bank account. And he's like, yeah, we do. I was like, this organisation that represents however many million people around the world has €400. I have €400. Pretty much about that. I was like, yeah, could buy them out. Yeah. So I was like, so talking, it was like, what do you need? Well, what you need was pretty obvious. They needed a sponsor. Yeah. And no one wanted to touch it because the political connotations. So you sponsor this organisation, you are basically putting your name behind Tibet. And then you are cutting any chance of doing business with China, potentially. It's not definite, but that could be an embarrassing conversation for a business. You're doing business in China, and they're like, well, look, this is your name next to the Tibet logo. And you're like, that can crash a business deal worth however much. So he said, no one wants to sponsor this organisation. So
was it Paddy Power in the end?
Yeah.
Good old Paddy Power. They don't mind taking people on, do they?
This was why it was the funniest thing that, of all the brands and of all these weird things. So I went to this AGM, came back, and I was like, look, no one wants to host your World Cup. No one wants to sponsor you. I was like, who sponsors stuff that nobody wants to sponsor? I was like, Paddy Power.
Yeah.
I remembered the story of how they'd intentionally got in a legal dispute with Pele just for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Ended up paying him huge settlements just because they put Pele Power on loads of their stores without asking him. And then they just were like, oh, well, we'll just pay him. So I was like, they don't mind.
Yeah.
So I contacted a mate of mine who worked there, told him the whole story when I was I think I was pretty drunk at the time. I tried to outline all the intricacies of Kanifa football. And he's like, this is great. I love it. I won't remember it. Put it in an email. So I did. And sure enough, from this first kind of drunken conversation went all the way through meeting after meeting. And they sponsored this tournament in London. They're like, that we'll do this tournament. It's got to be in London. It'll be called the Kanifa Paddy Power World Football Cup.
Yeah.
We couldn't call it World Cup because you'd be sued, apparently.
No, they own that phrase, yeah.
And this was the thing. And so we had this thing of going through trying to find stadiums, and sort of really consciously decided get non-league stadiums, get proper grassroots football clubs, especially if possible, fan-owned clubs. We've got Enfield Town, amazing club.
Yeah. Played them on the weekend.
Yeah. Can't remember what the result was. I don't know if I should mention it or not.
We drew 3-3.
Oh, there you go.
They were 3-1 down as well, so we're quite happy.
Oh, you're probably pretty happy with that. Yeah. But they were amazing, and they have a big North Cypriot community up there.
Yes,
so
they do, yeah.
that was also huge because they were like, can we host all the North Cyprus games? We're like, yes, this is amazing. And so one of our biggest games ended up being North Cyprus against Tibet. It was packed out at the QE2, absolutely packed. And they were Enfield were amazing, but we were so bare bones Kanifa as a staff. It was just about 6 or 7 of us running this thing, all voluntary, trying to run an international football competition in London. And literally,
it was mad. They had all the flares out and stuff.
It was mad.
It was going to kick off at one point.
That day where I turned up, and there's Tibetan dancing going on and North Cyprus flags everywhere, and I'm there in the stands, and I'm technically in charge. I'm just I don't know what I'm doing. And we've got to play the national anthems. And I had them on my computer, so we'd got them burnt, and they were on my computers, just in iTunes. This is 2018. And I'm there, and we've hooked up my laptop. I don't know if it's even working. It's on the PA system, and the players are lined up. The Tibetans are all there, hands on their hearts. And I'm like, holy shit. Press, and I press play, and thank God the Tibetan anthem came out rather than whatever alphabetically was the next song on my iTunes, right? Yeah. I was just this is the chance to cause the greatest offence in history.
Yeah.
But no, it worked, and it was the most nerve-wracking moment of my life. But just to see these two, they're literally crying because,
Yeah. No, it's a massive
this
moment
is
for them,
a huge thing to represent their identity. And that day, that whole game was an amazing dream just to see the whole stadium alive with colour and excitement. And that was the real high of doing that event. We had a death threat called in on us for the Abkhazia game, and it turned out it was a 80-year-old woman who had posted a death threat in Facebook. And I was like, I don't know whether I should be scared. I couldn't see the profile picture, so I was like, I don't know. So I got to the stadium for the Abkhazia game, and this woman's outside, and she's like, I messaged you. And I was like, the death threat? And she's like, yes, I don't think this game should be happening. This Abkhazia is part of Georgia. And I was like, look, I'm not going to argue with you, but I was like, thank God it's an 8-year-old woman who called in the death threat. And then she's like, but can I come in and watch? So there was this madness going on, right? And then on the final day of the tournament, we'd taken all our revenue. We would just take the gate receipt. We just have in an envelope, and our like manager at each stadium would just bring it back to our hotel. Say hotel was a hostel. Bring it back to our room, and we'd just put it in a bag in the corner of our room. And it was on like the second last day that I was like, you know how we're going to pay all this into this bank account, Conifa's bank account? And they're like, yeah, Swedish bank account, totally fine. Just got to go to the branch. And I was like, yeah, there's no branch in London. And they're like, yeah, there is. Phoned up the branch. They're like, we're just an administrative headquarters. You can't deposit money here. Like, this is like going into someone's office. You can't put this money in our bank. And I was like, what are we going to do with £36,000 in cash? Like literally in fivers and tenors. And so the head of Conifa was like, okay, well, we're all going home tomorrow. So it's only really you who lives in the UK. Can you just put it in your bank account? And I'll give you a letter saying, this is all right. This is going to my organisation.
The tax and that stuff,
so like an idiot, I phone up HSBC in Edgware and I'm like, I've got quite a lot of money to bring into your account, to your branch. Can I deposit it? And the woman's like, yeah, probably be all right. Like, be fine. Just come in. I'll make sure there's a like counter clear for you because it'll be more private. Get into the branch. Obviously, she's not phoned ahead. Go up to like one of the tellers and they're like, what are you trying to do? And I'm like, I've got a lot of money in this briefcase and I want to put it in the bank. She's like, what? Because, you can't hear through the glass. And so someone comes out and he's like, how much have you got there? And I was like, about £36,000. And he goes, £36,000. And the whole branch turns.
Nightmare.
And then I go into they put me into an office with this bank manager and he's like, are you a mule? Basically, are you trafficking this money? Like, are you money laundering on behalf of someone? And I was like, no, it's totally valid. Yeah. And I was trying to explain it. I'm like, I've got this letter and it's signed by the president of Conifa. And he's like, what are you talking? He's like, I actually should call the police because you fit the profile of someone who's like a mule to cash money, basically. Because he's like, I can see your bank account. You do not have any money in your bank account. Why are you? He's like, I cannot let you do this. It's like against all my ethics. He's like, I will not call the police as a favour to you, but tell your organisation this is not cool. Like, do not do this. And he's like, and yeah, you've got to go, get out.
So what is the answer? Doing it in lots of little bits or something?
So what I did is I walk out with my briefcase in a branch full of people who've just heard that woman yell 36,000. I'm like, it's the longest ever wait for an Uber to arrive, I'll tell you that much. Jumped in, and what we actually did was we put it into a safe deposit box.
Right.
Which they always tell you do not put money into. Like, I think they're not responsible for it if it gets stolen. But I was like, it's either that or under my bed. And slowly but surely, Conifa people used to take it back in like little chunks whenever they would come to the UK to keep it under the cash threshold. I think you're allowed to travel with like 8,000 or something. But it got spirited away out of London. My God, those few days were like,
Jeez.
I was like, I can't go back to my flat with 30k in cash.
Mad. That is mad, isn't it? You don't think about these things. I mean, there's a lot of, it's getting less cash stuff now, but obviously non-league is a lot of cash flying around and things like this. A lot of, way players get paid and things like this. It's happened. It's traditionally how it's often been done. But the ramifications there because you've got such a big tournament, all these big individual games that all gone into one bag. It's just can't imagine.
We really thought we were just going to cash it. I thought I was just going to walk into a deposit, deposit.
In theory,
it,
you should be able to, shouldn't you? In theory,
I think if you went into your bank now for a personal account and tried to deposit like thousands of pounds of cash, I reckon they probably would ask questions just because I guess because there's tax implications. It's like, why have you got 30k? But it just sounded so... I realised as I was halfway through explaining the letter, I was like, this is like a printed piece of paper with a signature of a man you don't know from an organisation that isn't registered in this country.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? With all due respect, Conifa sounds like something you could have just made up.
I'm there going, so we had Tibet and Abkhazia, and this guy's just looking at me like, oh no, mate.
Yeah.
Get out of here.